Welcome back to LifeLens TV, where we break down the most significant news stories and give you the insights that matter. I'm Jennifer Harrison, alongside my co-host David Maurison, and today we've got a big one for you. We're diving into the controversial takeover of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by Adani Holdings, a deal that's caused national outrage. But it doesn't stop there. Adani has also made moves into Kenya's energy sector. So, what does this mean for the country? We'll unpack all that and more, with David and I giving our take, while the brilliant mind behind today's content, Peter Tosh Williams, continues to steer the ship from behind the scenes. Once again, welcome. David, we've been following this Adani story for a while now, and it seems like it's not just limited to the airport. Kisii Senator Richard Onyonka has revealed that Adani is spreading its wings into Kenya's energy sector as well. According to him, Adani is on the verge of signing a deal with Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO, for electricity transmission lines, and the big question is, how deep does this go?
You're absolutely right, Jennifer. The scope of Adani's influence is clearly expanding, and what's alarming is that these deals are being pursued without public participation. We're talking about critical infrastructure here, electricity transmission lines. This isn't something that should happen behind closed doors.
Exactly, David. Onyonka's bombshell came at a time when the Roads and Transport Cabinet Secretary, Davies Churcher, was already facing heat. He was summoned before the Senate's Roads and Transport Committee to explain the JKIA deal, but he didn't have the necessary documentation. And if we take a step back, this also ties into the nationwide blackouts we've been experiencing. Energy CS Opiyo Wandayi justified these blackouts by claiming that Kenya needs a new power transmission line, and guess who's stepping up to provide it? Adani. The government has apparently approved a $117 billion project with Adani Energy Solutions to build 371 kilometers of transmission lines and 5 substations across the country. On the surface, it looks like a good deal, upgrading aging infrastructure and reducing outages. But, as always, the devil is in the details.
And that's the key issue here, Jennifer. There's nothing inherently wrong with a public-private partnership to improve infrastructure. In fact, it can be a smart move. But when you see that a company like Adani is being handed deal after deal without proper transparency, alarm bells start ringing.
Right, David. There's also the issue of timing. These deals are being fast-tracked at a time when Kenyans are suffering from power outages, which almost seems convenient for Adani's entry into the energy sector. You know, David, the timing of all these developments really raises a lot of eyebrows. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. First, we hear about the leaking roof at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Almost immediately, the government announces a partnership with Adani Holdings, and somehow they point to this leak as one of the reasons for the deal. It's as if they're using these issues as excuses to push through these highly controversial partnerships. And then, as if on cue, the entire country experiences a nationwide blackout. We've been dealing with power outages for years now, but suddenly Energy CS Opiyo Wandayi comes out with a ready-made solution, another power transmission line. But here's where things get interesting. Instead of exploring local solutions or companies that could easily handle the project, the government again awards the tender to Adani, a foreign company with a history of questionable dealings. It just doesn't add up. I mean, come on. Anyone, even an unschooled person, would put a question mark on this. Are we really supposed to believe that the timing of all these issues, the airport leak, the blackout, just happened coincidentally right as the government was ready to hand over these massive projects to Adani? It feels almost like these crises were used to justify decisions that were already made behind closed doors. Does the government really think Kenyans are uneducated, or that we don't see what's happening? Because let me tell you, Kenyans are smart, they are educated, and they know the difference between what's good for the country and what's questionable. The problem is the government seems to be treating us as if we don't understand what's going on, as if we're too naive to see through the smoke and mirrors. And honestly, David, it's insulting. The leadership is making decisions that affect millions of lives, and they expect us to just accept them without asking any questions. The truth is, Kenyans are paying attention, and they know when something isn't right. And this whole situation with Adani, the airport, the power grid, well, it stinks. People are already talking about it everywhere, from markets to matatus, even in churches. This goes beyond infrastructure. It's about trust. And right now, it feels like the government is testing the limits of how far they can push before Kenyans push back. Because as we both know, there's only so much that people can take before they demand accountability. What's happening here feels like the government is banking on the fact that we're too busy or too distracted to notice. But trust me, Kenyans are noticing. They're just waiting for the right moment to speak out, and when they do, it won't be pretty. Senator Onyonka was clear when he said that this matter is far too complex to be trivialized, and he's right. Nothing stops the committee from demanding documentation, and as he pointed out, these are the same documents that could be presented in court. And speaking of court cases, Churchill mentioned that there are already 2 legal battles tied to this, with one coming up later this month. That just adds another layer of complexity.
And if we dig a little deeper, Jennifer, it feels like there's a disconnect between the government and the people. Senator Sifuna echoed this sentiment when he said that the public is being left in the dark, literally and figuratively. The fact that this issue is being discussed in churches and entertainment spaces across the country just goes to show how much concern there is. But at the same time, our leaders are failing to provide answers. Churchill didn't bring the documents he was supposed to. How can we trust these deals if the very people responsible for overseeing them don't have the full information?
And it's frustrating because these are major national projects with far-reaching consequences. We're talking about Kenya's largest airport and its energy grid. How do you leave Kenyans out of that conversation? It makes you wonder if the government is prioritizing private deals over public good. Now, Churchill tried to defend himself by saying there are ongoing court cases and that Adani's proposal to develop JKIA was under a public-private partnership. But here's the thing. Transparency is key. Whether or not there's a court case, Kenyans deserve to know what's in these deals. David, if the public isn't brought into the fold, we could be heading down a dangerous path where key national assets are controlled by foreign entities without proper oversight.
Absolutely, Jennifer. And this isn't just about Adani or one particular deal. This is about setting a precedent. If we allow this kind of opacity with such significant projects, what's to stop other foreign corporations from coming in and taking over more of Kenya's infrastructure?
That's a valid point. And speaking of precedents, this isn't the first time we've seen such issues with foreign entities in Africa. We've seen similar situations in other countries where governments handed over major infrastructure projects to private companies, and in the end it was the citizens who paid the price, either through higher costs or subpar services. Senator Onyonka was absolutely right to push for this level of scrutiny. Kenyans need to be fully informed about what's happening, especially when it involves public resources.
And let's not forget that Adani itself has been involved in several controversies in other countries. There's a history here that Kenya should be aware of.
Exactly, David. There's a pattern, and it's crucial that our leaders look at the bigger picture. We're talking about the future of key infrastructure here. This isn't something to be rushed or hidden behind court cases. But, you know, David, the big question here is, why Adani? Why are we flying all the way to India, making deals with a private company, when we have several capable entities right here in Kenya? Think about it. Equity Bank, for example, is more than capable of funding massive projects like the JKIA upgrade. We have many other financial institutions and organizations that could get involved. So why Adani? Could it be that the government is deliberately choosing this entity because it's known for doing dirty business? It really makes you wonder if this is less about improving infrastructure and more about something shady behind the scenes. And it's hard not to think back to what COTU Secretary-General Francis Atwoli said during the campaign. He warned Kenyans, if you elect William Ruto, he'll carry the Central Bank of Kenya on his back and swallow it. We didn't fully understand then, but now it seems like Atwoli's warning is coming to life right before our eyes. As they say in Swahili, asiyesikia la mkuu huvunjika guu. Those who don't listen to wise counsel often end up in trouble, and maybe, just maybe, that's what we're witnessing with these Adani deals. All right, we'll continue to keep a close eye on this story as it develops, especially with the upcoming court cases and the pressure mounting on Churchill and the Senate. Thanks for joining us. And as always, we're here to make sure you get the full story. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Kenya's infrastructure deals are heading in the right direction? Should there be more public participation in these decisions? And that wraps up our discussion on Adani's growing influence in Kenya's infrastructure. As always, we're here to keep you informed with the facts and give you the insights you need. Huge thanks to David Maurison for co-hosting with me today, and of course a special shout-out to the director and visionary behind LifeLens TV, Peter Tosh Williams, for making all this possible. Stay tuned for more updates. I'm Jennifer Harrison, and this has been LifeLens TV. Until next time, take care and keep watching.
Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.